You look harmless. That's the thing. That's the whole thing right there. You walk into a room and people clock you for half a second, and then they move on because you don't register as a threat. You're not loud. You're not performing. You're not competing for the top spot in the social hierarchy of whatever situation you just walked into. And because of that specific quality in you that some people read as softness and others just flat out miss, they decided you were safe to ignore, or worse, safe to go after. And here is the part that I genuinely cannot stop thinking about. While they were treating you like background noise, while they were going through your life with a magnifying glass, trying to find something they could use, something they could point to, something that they would justify and what they had already decided about you. While all of that was happening, you were just being you, quietly, consistently, without a strategy, without a plan. And that right there, that specific thing that looked like nothing, just dismantled everything they built. Yeah, just dismantled everything. I need you to stay with me on this, because where this goes is somewhere most people never let themselves actually land. There is something there is something sitting in your chest right now that you haven't fully let yourself name. You feel it. You've been feeling it for weeks, maybe longer. It's not quite relief, and it's not quite satisfaction, and it's definitely not triumph the way triumph is supposed to feel. Loud and clean and obvious. It's more like that specific quiet that comes after something enormous happens. And your nervous system is still catching up to what just shifted. You have been carrying this thing through your mornings, setting it down at night, picking it back up before you even open your eyes. And you haven't said it out loud to anyone because honestly, how do you even begin to explain this to someone who wasn't there? No, who didn't see what you saw, who didn't feel what you felt like to be standing exactly where you were standing. So you have been quiet. And I want to tell you that the quiet has been doing something. Something has been moving inside that stillness you are being holding. And I think you need to hear what it is. There is a particular kind of person in this world. And if you are here right now, if something pulled you to this specific moment, you are almost certainly that kind of person. You lead with your heart before your logic catches up. When you walk into a room, something shifts. People feel it even when they cannot name it. You have spent a significant portion of your life being genuinely, deeply misunderstood. Not because you are complicated, no, but because the way you move through the world is unfamiliar to people who operate from fear. And here's what I know about you with complete certainty. You never stopped being yourself, even when being yourself cost you something real, even when it cost you a lot. And I don't think people talk honestly enough about what that actually costs. Do you know how much energy it takes to hold your shape when people are actively, methodically trying to reshape you? Most people do not even realize it's happening until they are already exhausted. They just know something feels heavy. They just know the world got harder to navigate, and they don't fully understand why. But you, my beautiful soul, you understood why. You always understood why. You just didn't have anyone confirm it until now. Let me tell you. I'm asking you permission. Let me tell you what I see when I look at your situation. I see someone who found themselves at the center of something that wasn't random. It wasn't just one person with a problem. It was a whole energy, a whole ecosystem, a climate of people and dynamics and unspoken agreements, all quietly, methodically oriented in the same direction toward you. And maybe you didn't see the full shape of it at first. Maybe you cut pieces, a comment that landed slightly wrong, a sudden coldness where there used to be warmth, a flicker behind someone's eyes that wasn't there the week before. And you got picked it up before your mind could process it. I want to say that animal instinct in you that knows when the temperature of the room has changed. You felt it, that low hum of something being wrong. And you probably told yourself you were imagining it. You were not imagining it. You were never imagining it. What was actually happening around you. And this is the part that, when you look at it clearly, is almost hard to believe, is that people were constructing a version of you. Not you, a version of you. A story about you that they could all hold together, that they could pass around, that they could build a shared understanding on. They needed that story to justify something they'd already decided. So they told it to each other over and over and over until it sounded true, until it felt true, until it became the actual ground they were all standing on together. And that version of you, the one in the story, had nothing to do with who you actually are. It never did. It was always never about you. It was about what you represented to them. Something your existence made visible that they were not prepared to look at. Just you, unguarded and honest and fully alive. That was enough to make them deeply, profoundly uncomfortable. And when people like that get uncomfortable, they don't look inward. They look at the source of their discomfort and they decide it needs to be handled. But here is where the whole thing starts to fall apart for them. And I want you to really hear this because the irony of it is almost beautiful in how complete it is. They chose the wrong person. They looked at your gentleness and read it as absence. They looked at your patience and saw passivity. They looked at the way you didn't rush to fire back, didn't match their energy, didn't make a scene, and they thought that meant you were empty, that there was nothing underneath, that you were the easy takedown, the one who would eventually just fold and quietly disappear so they could all move on, feeling justified. And instead you just kept being you. And I want to tell you exactly why that simple act, the simple act of remaining, of continuing to exist as the most honest version of yourself. I want to tell you why that was the most catastrophic thing you could have possibly done to them. When a group of people organize around a shared idea, when they bind themselves together through a common story, that story has to stay consistent to keep the group alive. The moment the story gets complicated, the moment reality starts intruding on the narrative, fractures form. Yeah, fractures form. And you were the complication. You were the reality that kept intruding because you were not behaving the way the story required. You were not breaking, you were not diminishing, you were not giving them the collapse they needed to prove themselves right. And when the story starts to crack, people do not examine the story. They examine each other. They start wondering who among them isn't believing hard enough, who is wavering, who might be quietly seeing something different. And that wondering, that specific low-frequency suspicion is corrosive. Yeah, it doesn't announce itself loudly. It steps in, sips in. It eats. Yeah, you didn't orchestrate any of this. You didn't strategize. Oh my God. You didn't maneuver or calculate or fight back in any way that could be pointed to and named. You simply refused to be what they needed you to be. And that refusal, quite consistent, almost unconscious, was enough. It was more than enough. It was everything. But before we go any further, I need to stop here for a second, because there is something that almost always gets skipped in stories like this, and I'm not going to skip it. There was a middle, there was a period, maybe long, maybe brutal, maybe both, where it wasn't clear how this was going to go, where you were just trying to get through the day with your sense of self intact. And that middle deserves to be honored before anything else. So let me ask you something, and I want you to actually feel into it, not just think about it. Do you remember the moments when you almost gave in? Not to them exactly, but to the version of yourself that they were insisting on. Do you remember when the pressure got so sustained, so consistent, so everywhere, that you started to wonder, even briefly, if maybe they were right, if maybe the problem really was something in you that you couldn't see? Those moments, those quiet, private, 2-3 a.m. moments of almost, that's where I want to place my hand right now and say, I see you. I see what it cost you to stay, because it wasn't nothing. It was a real, significant human thing to hold your ground in the middle of that kind of coordinated doubt. And most people would have moved Most people would have reshaped themselves at least a little just to make their pressure stop. Maybe part of you did shift temporarily. Maybe there were moments where you spoke less, played smaller, dimmed something just to breathe for a minute. That doesn't make you weak. No. That makes you human. But the core of you held, the actual essential you, that didn't move. That didn't move. And here is something I need you to understand about that. The fact that your core held is not stubbornness. It's not ego. It's not defiance. There is something in you that is connected to something that simply doesn't bend under that kind of pressure. Something that knows at a level deeper that than conscious thought, that you are not allowed to abandon yourself completely, not permanently, because there is a purpose in you that requires you to be whole. And that knowing, even when you couldn't feel it someday, even when it was completely invisible to you, that knowing was holding you even when you didn't know it was there. I want to talk about something that tends to get avoided in conversations like this because it sounds too abstract. Stay with me. Have you ever been in a situation where something should have gone catastrophically wrong and didn't? Let me stop here. Where you were completely exposed, right in the line of fire, and somehow the thing that was supposed to hit you went sideways and at the last second. Have you ever said something in a moment of pure authenticity? Not strategy, just honest, raw you, and watched it land in a way that shifted the entire room? Have you ever felt in the middle of something genuinely frightening, a strange, inexplicable calm that had no logical reason to be there? That's not luck. I do not believe in that kind of luck. That is something that recognizes the frequency you are carrying. The vibration of someone who is genuinely, consistently honest about who they are, who refuses to harm even when they could, who leads from a real place even when nothing is being returned. That frequency is recognized by something much older and much larger than any group dynamic. And it is protected. Not because you are perfect, not because you've made you've never made mistakes or caused harm or fallen short. No, but because your orientation is towards something true. And that orientation matters in ways that cannot always be seen, but can always be felt. They felt it. That's actually what happened. Your presence, your completely unstrategic, unapologetic, uncompromising authenticity, it made certain things visible in the space around them that they preferred to keep invisible. When the light in someone else makes you feel exposed, there are two things you can do. You can turn toward it and let it illuminate something in you that needed to be seen, or you can try to put it out. They chose the second option. But here's the thing they either forgot or never understood. You cannot extinguish a light from the outside. You can only put out a light from the inside by convincing the person carrying it to stop believing in what they carry. And they couldn't reach that part of you. They tried, of course, they tried, but they couldn't get to where your knowing lives. And so the light just kept being light. And everything built on something darker. Their agreements, their shared story, their foundation of what they constructed together started becoming impossible to maintain. There was a specific moment when things actually turned. I want you to think about whether you can find this in your own memory, because I think you will know exactly what I mean. There was a moment, quite, maybe unremarkable looking from the outside, where something in you just settled, where the effort of worrying about what they thought, the effort of managing the perception, the effort of being afraid of what might come next, all of that just released. Maybe it happened slowly and then all at once, the way those things do. Maybe it was one specific morning where you woke up and realized you were more interested in your own actual life than in the situation they were creating. Maybe you just got tired. Yeah, not defeated tired, no, done tired. Yeah, that kind of exhaustion. The kind of tired that has dignity in it. The kind where you stop giving something the energy it has been demanding. The moment you stopped feeding it, the whole system started going hungry. And here's the thing about systems built on a shared enemy, built on that low frequency building, binding of being against something together. They require constant feeding. Yeah, they need continuous energy from the person they've made the target. When you were afraid, when you were reactive, even when you were just privately worrying, you were feeding it. The moment you genuinely redirected yourself toward your own life without making it a statement, without announcing it, they had nothing to work with. The engine started sputtering, and then it just went away. They looked at each other, maybe really looked for the first time. And without you as the project, without the narrative of you holding them together, what they found in each other was the same dynamic that had been pointed at you, now aimed inward. The same judgment, the same competition, the same need to be right. And without an external target, all of it had nowhere to go. You didn't cause that. You didn't cause it. You didn't create it. It was always there. Yeah. You were just the pressure valve, the place they directed to it so it didn't implode on itself. When you removed yourself from that role, all you did was let what was already true become visible. And now I want to talk about right now. Lost my. Because even when something that was hurting you collapses, even when the thing you braced against and survived starts falling apart, it doesn't always feel like triumph. Not immediately. Sometimes it feels like grief. Sometimes it feels like standing in a strange quiet where it used to be loud, not quite knowing what to do with the absence of something you'd learned to navigate, even something painful. And maybe there is something else in there too, something you haven't quite said out loud, a kind of involuntary compassion you feel even towards some of them, because cruelty was never your language. Watching someone fall, even someone who tried to pull you down, even that doesn't fully feel like a win to you, even that doesn't fully feel like a win to you. And I want to hold space for that, because that specific quality, the ability to feel the complexity of another human being falling into the consequences of their own choices without excusing what they did, without pretending it didn't happen, but just feeling it. That is evidence of exactly the kind of person I have been describing. The one they couldn't reach. Give yourself credit for that right now. Yeah, give. Not because anyone is watching, because you earned it. Here's what I need you to understand about what this experience actually did to you. On the inside, in the place that has nothing to do with them, you are not the same person you were when this happened. Not in the ways they tried to change you. You did not bend to their narrative. You did not become what they insisted. But in a deeper way, something in you has been forged. Something has become solid that used to be softer. Not hard in a closed-off, defended way. Solid like a bedrock that has been tested and now knows its own depth. You have discovered something about yourself that could not have been discovered any other way. That when everything external, is pursuing you to collapse. You don't. And that knowledge, that revealed, that real, lived, experiential knowledge is the kind of thing no one can ever take from you. You carry it permanently now. It is part of a structure of who you are, which means that the next time, but there will be a next time in some form, because there's the nature of living with any kind of authentic visibility. The next time something tries to organize against you or convince you that you are less than what you are, you will not have to wonder if you can survive it. You already know. You've already proven it to yourself in the most undeniable way possible. And I want to say something about the people who might be reappearing now. The ones who are suddenly showing up with softer tones, friendlier energy, acting like the distance of recent months was just some natural drift rather than a deliberate choice. Be careful. Yeah, be careful. Not fearful, not closed, but careful in the way of someone who has learned something real and doesn't need to unlearn it to seem gracious. Some people come back because they genuinely changed. Yeah. Some come back because being on the opposite side of your energy got uncomfortable in ways they didn't anticipate. Some come back because they haven't changed at all. They've just recalibrated their approach. They have decided that what they couldn't take from you through pressure, maybe they can access through warmth. You will know the difference. Your body will tell you before your mind catches up. Trust that. Not paranoia, not assumptions, just honest, grounded, present discernment. Let people show you who they are now. Keep your heart open, but don't hand your trust back before it's actually been earned. That's not bitterness. That's wisdom. And you've earned the right to be wise. There is something trying to reach you right now, something that was always meant for you, but couldn't get through because of the static, because of the weight and noise of everything you were navigating. And it doesn't announce itself loudly. It comes in the same register as your intuition, as a soft knowing, as a direction that feels strangely natural even though it's new. As a possibility. Yeah, possibility that lights up some long dormant part of you in a way that has nothing to do with what anyone outside you has been insisting you should want. Pay attention to that. Whatever that is for you right now, pay close attention to it. Because this specific moment you are in, this is not the end of the story. This is the first moment of the next one. And the next one is calibrated to who you actually are. Not the managed version, not the version that played small to survive. The real one. The one that just held through everything and came out the other side still standing, still intact, still somehow remarkably, completely yourself. Your worth was never up to debate, not by them, not by the group, not by any of it. No matter how organized the effort was, no matter how many voices agreed on a diminished version of you. None of that touched the actual reality of who you are, of what you are. What you are cannot be voted on. It doesn't require a consensus. It doesn't need to be earned through performance or proven through suffering or validated by winning some external battle. It simply is what it is, completely, undeniably. And the most important shift that needs to happen now, more important than anything about them, more important than who comes back and what gets rebuilt, is you actually, finally, fully believing that. Not saying it as an affirmation, not performing it, letting it settle into the ground of who you are, like water into soil, until it becomes the foundation that everything else grows from. You're not who they said you were. You never were. You are something rarer and quieter and more enduring than anything they could have handled being close to. And the life waiting for you on the other side of all of this. The real connections, the real work, the real expression of what you are here to do. That is yours. Yeah. It was always yours. It was always moving toward you. And now, finally, your hands are free to receive it. So go receive it and keep being exactly what you are. Because the world right now needs the specific, particular, completely unrepeatable light that lives in you. I mean that. I'm with you in this.